Okay, today we're going to start with our new foldable, which is Unit 12 on probability. Some of this you may be familiar with, and some of it you may not. We're going to start with our first tab, which is sample space and subset. I will warn you, there's quite a few notes to take. A lot of it's on symbols and knowing what things mean, so make sure you leave room. Try to write small, and you can always use that extra tab that doesn't have anything written on it when taking notes for this. Okay, we'll have about 6 slides worth of notes. You can go ahead and write this down, pause it, because I'm just going to keep talking through, so pause it and then go ahead and hit play again. But sample space, here the set of all possible outcomes. So right now, they give the numbers 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 as your sample space. Just so you understand what sample space means. Let's say you're rolling a dice. Okay, sample space would be the numbers you could get when rolling a dice. So your sample space for rolling the dice would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? Let's say that I put all the letters in an alphabet into a hat and ask you to draw, the letters out. The sample space for that event would be the letters A through Z. So there'd be 26 letters you would list out as your sample space. That's what they mean by sample space. Subset is the set of favorable outcomes, so the stuff you want to get. So if you look at this example right here, let's say these numbers are in a hat, and 2 and 7 are the subset. What they're saying is the numbers 2 and 7 are the ones you want to try to draw out of the hat. Okay, so I would want to try to get a 2 or a 7 out of the hat in order for it to be a favorable outcome. Okay, but they could be anything they want you to name it. And then the last thing up here, which is kind of hard to see, an element. Okay, they use this symbol right here for element. This is just saying 2 is an element in this group of numbers right here. So 2 is an element in that group of numbers. So a lot of the questions on Math Excel will be true or false questions for something like this. So let's say they said 9. If they asked you if 9 was an element in that group, you'd say no, it's not. Okay, but that's what they mean by element. All right, we have some other key terms that are up here. Again, hit pause so you can write it down. Okay, we have a union, okay, which is this symbol right here that's above that. Looks like a U. Okay, the main thing with union is it means the word or. Okay, so we may have two groups, and if they use a union, they're saying what could happen in A or B, or what numbers are in A or B, so you list them all out. The second one is an intersection, and it looks like an upside down U. Okay, and the key word there is and. So whenever you have an intersection, that means what is happening in group A and in group B. Okay. The next one is this symbol right here that's in front of the A. Okay, and it means not. So it means the key word is not. So it's saying what is not in group A. Another way they write it on Math Excel is with an apostrophe, okay, which I circled, which you can't really see, but they mean the same thing. That means not an A. And if you have answers where you don't actually have anything that overlap or are answers at all, then you have an empty set, which they use this symbol for. Okay, so if I asked you what numbers were in A and B and there weren't any, you would use that empty set symbol. Okay, so let's go ahead and try a few examples on the next slide. Okay, so in this slide, I gave the numbers that are in group A and in group B. So this first question says, what numbers are in A or B? That's what that symbol means. That's the union symbol, A or B. So it can be in either group. It can be in either group A or group B. So basically, you're just listing all the numbers that are up there. Okay, all the numbers that are up there. So the following numbers are up there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those numbers are either in group A or they're in group B. They're in one of the groups. Okay, so they can be in either group A or group B. The second question, okay, we already talked about that symbol means and. So what numbers are in group A and group B? So they have to be in both. Okay, there's only two numbers that are in both, and that should be 7 and 8. Okay, 7 and 8. And our last one, we're using the word and, okay, but notice this symbol right here. This is saying what numbers are in group A and not in group B. Okay, that little symbol means not. So they need to be in A and not in B. Okay, so if you look, 2 is a number that's in A, and it's not in B, so that should be one of our answers. Okay, our other answers, 4 is in A, not in B. 5 is in A, not in B. 6 is in A, not in B. You couldn't use 7 because it's in A, but it's also in B. And you couldn't use 8 because it's in A, okay, but also in B. So 2, 4, 5, and 6. I want to take you back to something we've done a while ago that you would have done maybe in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, but probability notation. Okay, and that's what this foldable is over, is probability. So I put up here, let's say H stands for getting a heads on a coin, and you want to find the probability of getting the heads. That's what the P stands for, probability, and H is heads. If you remember, whenever it asks for probability, you're going to have a fraction. Okay, you're going to have a fraction. So the number of outcomes when you flip a coin, you can either get heads or tails. So you have 2 different outcomes. Okay, so that number goes on the bottom. How many ways can you get heads? There's only 1 heads on a coin, so that number would go on top. So you have a 1 out of 2 chance of getting heads on a coin. If you wrote it as a decimal, okay, it'd be 0.50 or 0.5, okay, if they ask for that. And then if it asks you, is this event likely, unlikely, or as likely as not flipping heads, okay, in this case, you would say it's as likely as not. Okay, and what that means is you have the same chance as getting a heads as you do as not getting a heads. Okay, and that's what they mean by that. Okay, let's suppose we have a 6-sided die, and we're going to define M as rolling a multiple of 3. Okay, so rolling any multiple of 3. So it wants to know your sample space or universal set. So that is all the numbers you could get when rolling a dice. Okay, so we kind of talked about it before. So your sample space should be 1 through 6. So I'm going to go and write that down, 1 through 6. That would be my sample space. Your subset, remember your subset is the ones you want to get, the number of favorable outcomes. So multiples of 3 out of that group should be 3 or 6. So your subset, okay, for this group would be 3 or 6. That's what you want to roll, a 3 or 6. That's a multiple of 3. So it wants to know the probability of rolling a multiple of 3. So at the end, you have 2 things that are multiples of 3 out of 6 total numbers. So 2 out of 6 are multiples of 3. So that reduces down to 1/3. And then at the end, is this likely, unlikely, or as likely of rolling a multiple of 3? Well, 1 out of 3 isn't more than half, right? So that would be unlikely. You would have an unlikely chance of rolling a multiple of 3 because it's less than 1/2. Last thing I want to go over in our foldable is a Venn diagram. So go ahead and copy this down before we go over it. So you may want to hit pause again. We're just going to go over each one. So you have in blue group A, okay, in this blue circle. And then in group B, you have the red circle. So the numbers 1 through 6 appear either in those circles or on the outside of them. So in our first problem right here, we know this word means or. So this is saying what numbers are in A or B. Okay, A or B. So they can be in A or B. So if you notice, 1 is in A, 2 is in A, 3 is in A and B, and 4 is in B. So those 4 numbers are in either A or B. They show up in one of the 2 groups, if not both of them. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 would be the numbers that show up in either A or B. It can be in either one or both of them. If they ask you the probability, okay, of getting a number in A or B, remember that's going to be a fraction. So out of the numbers listed up here, there are 6 numbers, and 4 of them are in A or B. 4 to the 6 are in A or B. So if they ask for probability, okay, you would have 4 out of 6 or 2/3 to answer that question. Our second question. Remember, this means A and B. So what numbers are in A and in B? The only number in A and B is the number 3. So again, if they ask the probability of getting a number in A and B, okay, you have 6 total numbers up there, and 1 out of the 6 is in A and B. Okay, and I don't have to reduce that one. Okay, the third question. Okay, that symbol means not, so not in A. Remember, they may use an apostrophe in Math Excel. So right now, the stuff that is in A is 1, 2, and 3. So the stuff not in A has to be this 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so that one would be 4, 5, and 6. And again, if they ask the probability of stuff that's not in A, okay, you would say that 3 out of the 6 numbers, 3 out of the 6 total are not in A, which is the same as 1/2. Our last problem, this means a not in A or B. Not in A or B. So again, if you go back to the first one we did, numbers that are in A or B, I'm going to circle again. Those numbers were in A or B. So numbers that are not in A or B are just 5 and 6. Those are the numbers not in A or B. Okay, and again, if they ask for the probability of numbers not in A or B, so they wrote it like that, I would say that 2 out of the 6 numbers are not in A or B, and that reduces down to 1/3.